Oh, I've always been. But not only that, equally into popular culture, films, TV, books,
But this is why
history, knowledge is power, is creativity.
But this is why.
You know, Jeremy Corbyn, for instance, as we all know, has fought on an individual basis, has fought racism all his life. So that's the truth. It doesn't matter if every mainstream outlet on earth says the opposite is true. That is the truth, and it's provable. So unless we're turning our back on empirical evidence as a means of assessing truth, which is a very, very dangerous way to go, then I think you've got to accept that that's the case. I've just been reading a book called The Death of Truth by, I can't remember the name of the author now, which examines all this in detail about we're now essentially in the middle of the Third World War, which is the commanding of the appropriation of the definition of truth using various means. And it's happening everywhere, all around us. I no longer buy any newspapers, any. None of them. They don't report the news anymore, and what news they do report is out of date anyway, so you may as well get your news from selected news sources and use your own personal news aggregation online, which is what I do now. But, I've just come on a train from Manchester this morning. It was £5 extra to go in first class, so I went in first class, very nice seats, some free crisps, etc. And people sat next to me reading the Daily Mail. Now, Daily Mail is poison, but they believe it's truth. Now, this has always happened. It's not a new thing, but it's just more prevalent now. The good news is that newspapers are finished. The good news is that everybody, not everybody, but the vast majority of people under the age of 25 don't even watch the television, let alone buy a newspaper. They make their own minds up. Yeah, that was always very much part of mine and Ian Marsh's beliefs. I mean, Ian Marsh's dad was a builder all his life. My dad was a tool maker all his life in Sheffield. None of us went to art school. None of us went to university. So that's really relevant, I think. Yes. Phil was a little bit different. His dad was head postmaster in Sheffield. So he was like, they moved from city to city as they got different jobs. So he was less politically activated, shall we say, than myself and Ian. So consequently, when the Human League split and we formed Hem 17, the fact that Phil had left and that Glenn came in, whose father also worked in the steelworks for all his life, suddenly it was like, all right, you are what you eat, right? So it's like, what are we talking about in our spare time? What are we passionate about? Politics, the injustice of and inequality in British society. We're also passionate about soul music and electronic music. And so we combined all those things together to create, initially, We Don't Need That Fascist Screw Thing, but subsequently a lot of different iterations, political iterations. Well, we used to discuss all sorts of things from nuclear warfare through to more domestic issues, even sexual politics, really. Yes. So all the things, but without it being a kind of didactic kind of holier than thou kind of thing. It's more. That's why we always like wrapping it in a more entertainment kind of. I mean, part of it was because we're from Sheffield, and the kind of feeling in Sheffield is quite a bolshy thing. You know, it's like people, young people, just get on with doing stuff. It's very much a doing place. It's a place of production. It's in the DNA. It really is. It's not some kind of facetious. It's a shoot first and ask questions later kind of creative scene, Sheffield, I believe. And also there's a belief in. We were looking at it as an escape from potential drudgery, really. Just expressing ourselves artistically. We weren't trying to be famous or stars. We weren't really bothered. Flattered, but it wasn't really. That's not why we were doing it. So that it was that kind of punk thing. That the genuine punk bands that we really liked were largely, funnily enough, northern actually. More like the Damned, for instance, and various other northern punk bands, because they appeared to come from a more authentic place, whereas the whole Sex Pistols thing was exciting but it was quite contrived. I felt anyway. It felt like pub rock to us in Sheffield, I hate to say it, but even the Clash was a little bit contrived. Although I loved them, I felt. The big problem we have is that Parliament is based in London. That the Houses of Parliament are like a giant male, white, middle class dominated members club where they kindly allow some women in occasionally. Like the Lords looks quite liberal in compared to in the broadest sense of the word compared to the House of Commons. My view on the ruling of this country is that they should move the Houses of Parliament into a giant hangar in somewhere very, very unglamorous, because then people would just get on with their jobs and stop thinking that they're rock stars. Because I'd say one of the biggest problems in the ruling class, which is what we're talking about, it's meant to be a democracy, but it's the ruling class in this country, is they think they are rock stars in the broadest sense of the word. I mean, look at somebody like David Blunkett, who is a source of great shame for me, because he's a Sheffield MP. And Nick Clegg, unbelievably terrible people that should never, ever have anything to do with government. One was Home Secretary, the other one was Deputy Prime Minister. What the actual fuck is that about? These people are supremely unqualified to have any kind of command. Another thing which really boils my piss, excuse my language, is if we waved a magic wand and you're Prime Minister, or I'm Prime Minister, and you're looking at who to appoint to your cabinet in major governmental posts, might it not be a good idea if they have some knowledge of the brief that they're given? Can you imagine any corporation on earth that would not have some kind of HR policy that might actually go, if you're being given a brief about women's rights or, what's Department of Culture, Media and Sport? What's that all about? There are some of the most inept people you could conceivably bump into in the street or put in charge, or shall we say nominal charge of these departments. I've spoken to them. They're idiots. They are told what to do. They are given the magician's choice by their Sir Humphreys in the civil service. And the most destructive thing that's happening currently with the current Tory party is they think they're in charge now. So they are now starting to tell the civil service what to do, and they haven't got a clue. They are misanthropic, destructive, without compassion, evil people.
I mean,
Yeah, but the worst you could say is that whilst he was a kind of avuncular kind of headline act for the whole kind of mid right in America, he was at least avuncular.
He wasn't an out-and-out racist.
It wasn't an out-and-out racist, and there was some kind of there was some very deeply seated old values in there somewhere. I don't believe there are in Trump at all. That was the single most destructive phrase ever issued in British politics. There's another book that I'd like to recommend to you. The new book by the guy that did *Sapiens*, called 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. Completely analyses everything. Largely, the kind of central thread of what links everything together is the fact that we are all now starting to genuflect to the great data gods, and that we're entering a datocracy, where all that matters is that can it be analysed, can it be therefore manipulated, and this is extremely dangerous territory that we're moving into now. Well, look at Cambridge Analytica.
Yes. Yeah.
So this notion that current forms of or traditional forms of democracy are a given. It is just been completely vaporized as far as I'm concerned now. We are no longer in a democratic society. We're in a society that's manipulated beyond our comprehension at a very deep level by dysfunctional forces whose main efforts are financial gain, but also the purest drug is power. That actually gets them hotter than the money, I think.
Now,
yeah. Okay, so for a layperson, I think I would like to explain socialism. I mean, socialism has its own baggage as a word. First of all, we've got to acknowledge that. So maybe there's a different term that could be used which didn't have so much baggage. So that's my caveat to this. But let's just use socialism for now. So socialism, I think, is just governing for the benefit of the majority of people. I think it's that simple. I think that pretty much encapsulates it. I don't think you need anything more than that. If you want to go deeper into it, yes, it means a redistribution of wealth. But the litmus test is, does it benefit the majority of people or does it benefit the minority of people? It's not that complex. You could argue that one of the main imperatives of the current kleptocracy is to kill hope and to destroy the notion of a utopian society. Yeah, it's funny. I was watching a film called the Cloverfield Paradox.
yes, yeah.
And my wife turned to me halfway through and said, do the aliens always have to be like beating us up? And does there always have to be a giant white blinding light going up to the sky? And does there always have to be, does it always have to be women who are terrified of stuff? And does there always, and I'm going, you're absolutely right. They have to destroy hope. Hope is a very dangerous thing. that's why I get so heartened by the amount of protests that are going on now in London. They're like every weekend, more or less. I love it. I love it because people understand that power now. They're starting to wake up, and especially young people. You know, my daughter's 22, my son's 20. It's just a normal part of their everyday existence that if there's a march going on, they'll go on it. I remember going through a period 10, 15 years ago. I used to turn around to people going, what happened to students? When did they used to be the heartland of protest, and then they got so completely destroyed. And also this loan thing coming in is meant to destroy them even further. But the irony is, this has actually created an engine which has made them protest. They're going now, we've got nothing to lose. Our situation is so bad. These are a lot of them middle class kids as well. They're going, we can't stay at home until we're 35. My daughter gets statements every 6 months or whatever, and this is not, oh, don't worry, you'll never have to pay it back. This is real money that's going to come out of her pocket. Directly, be like PAYE. People don't understand this. No.
Not at all. You think?
I can't see how they would get on with us. We have met. It's how you define ardent. We've had people coming up to us who have come to our gigs and go, oh, I used to love it in the 80s. Yeah, let's all make a bomb. Yeah, we were all making money, weren't we? It was fantastic. And we're going,
oh my God.
Yeah, no, completely miss it. So I used to work in the city at that point. It was our anthem. I'm going, no. Do you not understand what we were talking about? When we were doing things like smash hits, we'd often get, say, oh, we've got to do a photo shoot. Just turn up at this place and we'll do the photo shoot. And they'd look at the front cover and they'd go, right, will you wear this bowler hat and carry this thing as though you were riding around on a tube and you're going to the city? I'm going, I think you're missing the point. This is not who we are.
The front cover of that.
Yeah, that was meant to more explicitly show the dichotomy between the illusory luxury world and the scrapyard behind it. So we can't understand what turns people on about that sort of thing. What's the relevance to it? How rich do people need to be? Richard Branson owns Necker Island. How big is Necker Island? Who cares? We're never a part of that world. It's like trying to imagine how far away the Andromeda galaxy, whatever. It's not relevant to us. We can't conceptualize it. It's like trying to understand quantum physics. But for some reason, it matters to them to the extent that they're willing to ensure that everybody else is ground into the dirt because of it. And that's another definition of socialism. There has to be some form of check and balance on this because they are not ever, for 1 second going to police themselves. It's not even a matter of morals. But of what use is it to you? And this is another element of this book, the 15 lessons for, there is going to be a new aristocracy that have access to the latest life-extending technologies at the expense of the general population. I tend to think that maybe Rupert Murdoch's already using it. Glam rock opened up the notion of it was okay to dress up. We often I dressed in women's clothing quite a lot, so did Glenn. But not in an effort to... It was more fun rather than any kind of serious political statement. We were so out there. honestly, you wouldn't believe. Thank God there are no photos. I think it's not necessarily, might be the Midlands as well, but a northern thing about the drudgery of working in a factory or whatever all week, and then at the weekend you let your hair down, and it's like you only get dressed up on Friday and Saturdays. Did some stuff with Pete McKee recently, the artist, in his exhibition, which was all about people working all their lives and then dying, and people remembering them for the sacrifices they made, which is just as noble as any soldier or gladiator. So we did, me and Gabriel in particular did this amazing piece of gladiatorial nobility music to go with this beautiful thing of a steelworker dying on his deathbed with his wife holding his finger. Oh God, it makes me cry thinking about it. It's so beautiful. Things like that. I believe in the nobility of the working class, and I always think that we have always been outsiders within our swathe of the music industry.
Yeah.
Quite proudly. Yeah, maybe we're all aliens. You know, that's quite a powerful message too. What's been interesting is, occasionally, like everybody, you look at I'd look on Twitter, just see what's going on. You enter Heaven 17 or my name or whatever, just to see what people are saying. You have to have balls of steel, I have to say, but that's all right. I can deal with it, and generally it's quite favourable. So, but the interesting thing is, if you do the same thing on YouTube or Facebook, there's a lot of photos and videos of protest marches in America where you'll see placards with "We don't need this fascist crew" thing in there. Yeah. There are several kind of grungy indie bands who have done cover versions of Fascist Crew thing. These people are in their early 20s. The thought that something that you've created has such a cultural resonance that is still relevant to a completely different generation is incredibly fulfilling. I love Momentum, you see, I'm a big fan.
Tell me about Momentum.
Well, I'd go to the meetings, I'd donate to them.
So you're part of the evil conspiracy?
Bring it on. If I'm evil, then so be it. I'm happy to be evil in the views of the people who are evil. Well, I'm sure it actually worries a lot of the established, the accreted, self-entitled masses certainly in the parliamentary Labour Party. That's how I view Chucker and Munner and all the people who've been there forever, who just think they've got a right to a job in perpetuity. Yeah. You don't even have that as a bank manager nowadays.
Reselection of representatives.
Get them reselected. I was going to stand as an MP. I was going to see if I could I didn't want to go through the endless going up the incremental ladder and buttering people up and all that, because I honestly thought the process might just destroy whatever passion I'd got. So I thought if I can get closer to the top of the Labour Party or Momentum, and they might show some interest because I've got some kind of reputation. However, as soon as I actually really seriously started thinking about it, I thought, I have probably a zombie army of skeletons in my closet, that they would just immediately whip out and destroy me and my family with. So I'm not being a coward, but I just think I'm just being realistic. It would probably end up doing more damage to the Labour Party's image than... it's just sad, isn't it? I'd have to give up my musical career to do it properly. I'd want to do it properly as well. I wouldn't want to do it as a kind of, oh yeah, I'll take the salary and do a monthly surgery. phone it in. I don't want to phone it in. I'd want to do it properly. For the Earth.
For the whole Earth. You rule the Earth.
Oh, the Earth. Oh,
Yeah.
that's quite a question, that, isn't it? Yeah. First of all, we've got to slam the brakes on global warming. Number one, that's got to be stopped.
Okay.
I would look into seriously colonising or exploring the colonisation of other planets. Not so we can rape their mineral resources and make profit out of it, but just in case we need an ark. I would immediately set up organisations that would do urgent research into the reordering of economic systems in the world to eradicate hunger and unnecessary exploitation of third world countries. I would disband the United Nations immediately and form a new world government. There would be no top table veto.
So no Security Council.
No Security Council. There would be votes in proportion to the population of the countries concerned.
Democracy, amazing.
Yeah, that'll never work. That's why I love our Hem 17 audience, because a lot of those people have grown up with us. A lot of those people were kind of new wave fans, or but it's not just the music. It was like a series of cultural imperatives that were happening at that moment in time, or that slot. And so we have incredibly loyal fans. I mean, ridiculously loyal fans. I'm constantly in amazement. I thought if we were doing what we were doing and people were still listening to it in 10 years' time, when we were doing it in 1981, I'd have regarded that as a triumph. If you polled, say, an audience of 1,000 people that come to see us, and you could ask them all the same questions, and how many of those people would be politically engaged?
Yeah.
I would say probably 10%. Round about that level. The rest of them just want a good night out. They don't buy into you and your philosophy,
No.
or me and my philosophy. They don't buy into that. They're not interested in it, largely. They like the idea of... They find it... I tell you what they do. With Hem 17, I think they find our take on stuff interesting. But a lot of them don't agree with it. It's not compulsory, I think there are people who will go, if they like Hem 17, there are people who genuinely like Hem 17, maybe have bought a lot of stuff over the years, who will go to the grave never really even considering the political content.
And that's fine by you?
Yeah. So we're not there to persuade people anything. It's just what we believe. It's an opt-in, not an opt-out.